Live from KMOV, News 4 is covering breaking news.
Stunning images you're not going to see anywhere else coming in from Ferguson within the last hour. We've seen flash bombs, police launching tear gas canisters throughout the area. Another volatile night in Ferguson is unfolding.
It is night 5 of the clashes between police and people on the streets of Ferguson.
Yeah, from the video, you can see and understand how dangerous things have become tonight.
That's right, and we want to tell you that our reporters are embedded in this. Let's take another look and listen to their point of view.
Y'all gonna burn somebody's house down over this shit? Y'all hey, y'all
Our photographer Scott Thomas capturing what's happening on the ground tonight from that astounding perspective behind the lines.
Yeah, he was there, right there, as the blasts of canisters were going off, and Scott Thomas joins us on the phone right now. And Scott, you were embedded in what looked like a dangerous situation. At any point, did you fear for your safety or anyone else's safety around you?
Well, Steve, I tell you, the police here exercised all manner of restraint. They received verbal abuses all day long, and it wasn't until things were actually thrown at them that they took action with tear gas and advanced. Yeah, it is a scary situation when someone's firing projectiles at you, and I managed to be on the upwind side of the tear gas, so I didn't get a lot of effects that way. But this situation was only occurred when bottles or rocks were thrown at the police, and that is when they used tear gas.
Scott, you've been out there for days, really nights now. Have you seen the tension diminish in any way, or does it just keep seeming to escalate?
Well, it seemed like today that things were calming down, and then we had this little flare-up, and it was once again caused by a small percentage of individuals within the group of this protest.
All right, Scott, thank you very much. Scott Thomas, our photographer, in the middle of the unrest tonight in Ferguson.
Compared to other nights?
Another News 4 crew in the middle of an interview when a blast of tear gas goes off. A scary night for many and more protests.
That's right. It's a very fluid situation as police are telling people to get out of the way. We have several crews covering this situation. News 4's Julian Johnson is in Ferguson tonight to start things off. Julian.
Well, Sharon, we're at the corner of Lang and Ward, and it is again a tense scene out here. I'm going to step out of the way so you can see police down there at the corner of West Florissant and Lang. I'm sorry. It's hard to tell even how many officers are down there because they're shining this bright light to encourage people to leave. That's the message they keep repeating. They want people to disperse and to go home. However, not everyone is getting that message. There were still some people out here that are lingering, refusing to go home, shouting back at officers. And this all started with a peaceful protest earlier this afternoon, but at this point, it's clear that that message was lost. A protest aimed at peace.
This is not an isolated incident. This is a build-up to what's been going on in this community for a very long time. And the people need to be heard.
Ended with guns aimed at them.
Return to your vehicles. Return to your homes.
It's sad because that's not the intent of any of this here.
The march meant to show support for 18-year-old Mike Brown and the ongoing push for justice in his case. But with some protesters there peacefully and others focused on disruption by blocking traffic and sitting in the road, officers nearby took back control.
We're asking that you continue down Canfield.
I think some of those protesters go out there with the intention of trying to provoke police.
Absolutely. I think a lot of them, and many of them are not from our neighborhood. They're coming in, and they're using this as an opportunity.
So you think if a little less police presence, things would be better?
Yeah, I mean, when they show a lot of force like that and M16s and everything like that, that kind of riles them up.
Today's images similar to the ones our camera caught last night. Some demonstrators seemingly trying to provoke officers to fire. They didn't, and the man walked away, but it's one example of the thin line between peaceful protest and chaos.
So when we see violence and we see protests that turn to violence, it frustrates us, it grieves our heart. And not only does it grieve our heart, but it denigrates the memory of a young man who died on the street of Ferguson.
So back out here live, you can see officers still standing guard, encouraging people to go home. As you saw in the video that we showed you earlier, they did fire tear gas, but again, people still out here lingering. There are several roads closed, and they're hoping that that move also encourages any protests to be done for tonight. We are live in Ferguson. Julian Johnson, News 4.
Be prepared. Everybody be prepared. Be prepared.
And more video from West Florissant and Chambers. People wearing masks in protest preparing to be tear gassed. As the sun set in Ferguson, protesters were asked to go home, a request by the city and its chief of police. And judging by what we've seen tonight, that request is being denied. News 4's Corey Stark on West Florissant. And Corey, you were right there where the tear gas canisters were thrown in.
Sharon, that's right, and we've seen a lot of tear gas used tonight, as Julian said, as police try to get these individuals that are out here to go home. And we're on West Florissant now. You can see crowds of people still lingering around, and they've wanted them to come up closer, as I said, north on West Florissant. But you can see the chaos that broke out when the tear gas was used to disperse those crowds. As you mentioned, we were right in the thick of things in the middle of an interview, and the police, is the next thing we know, they were using this tear gas, and we started bolting the other way. You saw hundreds of people that were out there running the other way, and it was only about 5 minutes ago that that tear gas started making its way up to where we are right now on West Florissant. Our eyes started watering. We began to cough, so you can only imagine those people that were on the front lines when this tear gas was used. Now, a lot of people we talked to said that it was a peaceful protest, but then the police said that the protesters were getting violent, and this is what one person who was on the front lines had to say to me.
We just said hands up, don't shoot.
Is that all you were saying?
That's all we were saying. Hands up, don't shoot.
Were you in the front line up there?
In the front line, yes. And they just start shooting.
And we've heard that from a lot of people, that they simply were on the front line that say don't shoot. But you heard Scott's account earlier. He was a little closer to that front line where he saw some maybe rocks being thrown at some of the officers. But I did just talk with actually a pastor of a local church who was with 8 members of his church group. They were on the front line as well, and he said that they didn't see anything violent happen. But again, that's what police are saying happened that caused them using this tear gas and dispersing these crowds. Of course, we'll ask police about that as soon as we can. We'll send it back to you guys.
All right, thank you, Corey Stark, reporting from Ferguson. 2 journalists covering the protest in Ferguson arrested inside of a McDonald's tonight. You're looking at a picture tweeted out by Huffington Post reporter Ryan Riley, who was detained along with Wesley Lowry, who works for the Washington Post. Riley says SWAT teams told them they were held for, quote, not packing their bags quick enough. Both journalists have been released. Ferguson, Florissant schools have called off classes this week. The first day of school was supposed to begin tomorrow. That won't happen because the district says it needs time for the situation in North County to stabilize. The goal is to start classes on Monday, August 18th. There's no timetable in place for the police shooting investigation involving Mike Brown's death. Prosecuting attorney Bob McCullough made that known this afternoon in a press conference. He also says his office will use the same investigation tactics it uses in all cases. They're also looking for more witnesses and video to be submitted as evidence.
If the grand jury's determination at the end of all that is that there is no indictment found, then all of that information, all of the transcripts of the testimony of every witness, every video clip, every piece of paper, every photograph, every bit of physical evidence, absolutely everything will be immediately made public. And I will be available at that point to answer specific questions about anything and everything.
He also says he's still waiting to talk to several key witnesses. One of them is Brown's friend Dorian Johnson, who was standing near Brown when he was shot and killed. Sharon?
Steve Ferguson's police chief has handed over 911 tapes to attorneys so they can be vetted. Those phone calls are expected to be released after that happens. At the same time, computer hackers were at it again. The group Anonymous released recordings claiming it is St. Louis County Police Dispatch. St. Louis County Police Chief John Belmar, meantime, says he cannot speak about the tapes the group released to YouTube. The audio file is an hour and 50 minutes long. Now, the strain of Ferguson police and the county is on high. Another long night in Ferguson seems to be taking shape. Matt Cesny spoke with the county's chief about the toll this is taking on his department and his officers.
Yeah, that's right, Sharon. In fact, the county police chief had told me earlier tonight he was hopeful that the tensions would begin to subside here in Ferguson, but clearly that hasn't happened at this point. Even from where we are here at the police command post, we could hear those tear gas canisters being fired into the street. The chief also wouldn't say how many officers are here tonight, but he would tell us they are working 12-hour shifts. All vacations in the department have been canceled, and he says his officers are holding up well as they stare down dangerous situations. St. Louis County's police chief stood outside headquarters and said he hopes things will quiet down in Ferguson because so far it's been way too dangerous.
During the last 4 days that during the protests, there's been dozens and dozens of times when shots have been fired in the neighborhood. So my officers have acted with an incredible amount of restraint.
Early Wednesday morning, restraint gave way to gunfire when an officer shot a 19-year-old suspect wearing a mask and holding a gun, according to the chief. The suspect, Ishmael Britton, is in critical condition.
I don't see anything on this shooting regarding the justification that I would question. I think it's reasonable to expect that when a police officer has a handgun pointed at him at close range, that he's in certainly imminent fear of losing his life.
It's an incident Chief Belmar hopes doesn't happen again. Yet today, when protesters took to the streets, there was yet another confrontation with police on West Florissant.
We're agitating them at this moment, and so therefore they're now seeing the frustration of the people in our community.
And it does seem to be continuing tonight. Chief Belmar also says he is managing to keep enough police officers to patrol the rest of St. Louis County. And he also says he has worked out a plan with other area police chiefs to try and put a stop to any looting that may move beyond the Ferguson area into other parts of St. Louis County as well. We're live in Ferguson. Matt Cesny, News 4.
And another live look for you tonight in Ferguson. You see a tank right there moving in. We've seen tear gas flowing, launched into that situation that is still very tense.
Coming up, another eyewitness to the shooting of Michael Brown describes what she saw on Saturday afternoon. That's coming up when News 4 at 10 continues.
Now, Sharon Reed, Steve Savard, Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton, and sports with Maurice Drummond. This is News 4 at 10.
Welcome back. A live look, night 5 since the shooting death of Michael Brown, and there is still unrest on the streets of Ferguson.
And more confrontation tonight between police and protesters. We'll be keeping track of this throughout the newscast and overnight, and then, of course, into News 4 this morning. That is surveillance footage of looters at the Phillips 66 on Shodo. There's audio in the footage which isn't typical. St. Louis police think these looters are some of the same people who broke into a shoe carnival grabbing all kinds of shoes. Angry and even embarrassed, that's how some people are describing their response to those images of looting and other destruction in the wake of Michael Brown's death. They're telling Jasmine Huda, enough is enough.
Steve, that's right. This is the Phillips 66, a gas station not in the city of Ferguson, but in the city of St. Louis. And it was looted, and so was the shoe carnival. And tonight, many people are using strong words and emotion to express their disappointment. Here's the video, and here was the immediate reaction.
Oh my God, that does not justify Mike Brown's death in any shape, form, or fashion.
I'm really embarrassed. I didn't raise my sons that way.
And what are they taking? Shoes, wigs, hot dogs.
All of the above. Crimes of opportunity in South St. Louis, Brentwood, and University City, just to name a few, in the wake of the Ferguson unrest. Eddie Taylor lives in the same complex as Michael Brown's family and calls these cases self-serving and destructive.
To think that your own people are acting that way, you know, they're destroying jobs. Only black people worked in those stores. Now they don't have a job.
I'm embarrassed as a black woman. I really am. My people are just tearing the city up, and we're not going to have anything. Yeah, I'm serious. I'm really heartbroken right now. I'm really. Just say it. I don't know what else to say about it. Just say it.
Emotional issue for you.
Yeah. Very.
And at a time when emotions are running high, a message about what these incidents do and don't represent.
If they had anything to do with Mike Brown, then they would be with the family. They would be doing decent things. They would be just doing, praying for him. It has nothing to do with Michael. Nothing whatsoever.
Jasmine Huda, News 4.
A Missouri state senator hit with tear gas during protesting in Ferguson.
She says she's angry at the military-style force police are using to control crowds. 14th District Representative Maria Chappelle Nadal says she's outraged and offended by the aggression police are using. She tells us she and 150 young protesters were hit with tear gas during a peaceful protest Monday night. Now she's calling out the Missouri Highway Patrol.
They have every right to assemble freely and to express themselves without having tear gas thrown at them. And oh, by the way, tear gas was thrown at me and we could not breathe. And that's by the State Highway Patrol. And I approved their budget, so you know I'm off.
When Nadal questioned Ferguson Police Chief Tom Jackson about the situation during a press conference earlier today, he was unaware that had happened. Another witness to the Brown shooting has come forward with what she says happened leading up to the deadly shooting. This is cell phone video she shot moments after the shooting. Mitchell says she saw the door close on the police car as the officer sat inside and Brown stood outside of it. She claims the two were grasping at each other as she looked through the window of the police car.
At this time after the shot, the kid breaks away and he started running away from the cop. The cop follows him and kept shooting, and the kid body jerked as if he was hit. And after his body jerks, he turned around, he puts his hands up, and the cop just continues to walk up on him and shoot him until he goes all the way down.
Tiffany Mitchell also goes on to tell us she hasn't slept in days and says she is an emotional wreck. In Ferguson, within the last 2 hours, flash bombs and tear gas canisters launched throughout the area as police try to encourage demonstrators to go home.
News 4 photographer Scott Thomas right in the middle of this, telling us tonight police reacted with what you are seeing only after demonstrators started throwing bottles and rocks at them.
Right now, a live look at the Florissant area. A turbulent night, as we mentioned, confrontations between police and protesters. At the moment, police shining lights on protesters trying to disperse the crowd. We've seen armored vehicles and SWAT teams on scene as well.
Could be another long night. Again, this is night 5 since the shooting death of Michael Brown, and people are praying for peace but preparing for much more to come.
We have a team of producers and reporters working overnight gathering new information and new video for News 4 this morning. That starts at 4:30. The Late Show with David Letterman is next. Thank you for tuning in. Have a safe night.